This is the Hook Better Leads podcast, and we're broadcasting live from Roofing Insights and Hook Agency joint booth at IRE. I'm with Dustan Biegler. How you doing, Dustan?
Real great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. And so today we're going to be talking about bottlenecks that come up when you are leading a roofing company. What are some of those bottlenecks? What are some of the biggest ones you've seen? I'm imagining that people are coming to you every once in a while, probably more than you feel comfortable helping, with roofing companies saying, I'm stuck.
Yeah, I do. And I love, by the way, being able to help. I wish I would have sought people out when I was younger. I would have been further along. I categorize roofing bottlenecks into three categories. Your first bottleneck is profit or sales, right? When you're getting going, that's really what you need to worry about is revenue, right? And then as soon as people figure out that problem, their next bottleneck is usually operations. And, operations, get solved by developing process in your company. And once you develop that process, that's usually the most painful part, but necessary. Once you do that, then it really becomes about the leadership in the company, developing other leaders in the company. When we decided to continue our growth in our company, that required us to leave the current market we were in, not leave it, sorry, expand upon it and go into a new market, right? Well, the current leadership can't be in both markets, effectively. So you have to have that right person with the right leadership being able to lead that team.
How important is character when you're talking to these other leaders? And I mean, you can tell me it's not at all, but in my experience, from what I can tell, character really does start to matter. And it's scary a little bit.
When you say character, are you saying
I'm saying
ethics?
Morals. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Talk
huge.
to me about it. Why does it matter?
Because if your team doesn't you need a team in order to grow.
Yeah.
And no team is going to be attracted to somebody they just can't stand behind. It's no salesperson can effectively go sell in something they don't believe in, right? They've got to have their heart and soul in the company. And that just doesn't happen if you don't have the right character.
There's been people that are leaders, and I'm just kind of digging into weird topics here, but for fun, there's been people that build cool companies and then there's like a ethical failure or moral failure. So somebody with not great ethics can build a company.
How long does it last though, right? That's the question. I mean, I'm thinking about this as something that's going to be around for long-term with continuous growth, right?
And solid, that it can't just easily just evaporate with some kind of
you've
crazy.
just seen them explode and dissolve overnight, right? And that's what happens, I think, when bad character gets involved. So
when you're actually hire, I know it's a weird thing to talk about, but when you're hiring, are you kind of looking for signs of consistency and how do you kind of figure out if people have that on a couple interviews? It's hard to hire and people lie.
This is probably my unique, opinion, but whenever I meet anybody, I always say there's always a level of trust there. It might be a low level, it might be a real high level, right? Depending on, what your interaction was with them and how well, how much time maybe you spent with them and maybe what situations you went through together, right? Yeah. And I know we try to identify as much as we can in an interview or maybe by calling the references, wherever that level of trust is, I would think that your level of trust was somewhere in a good place, right? If you decided, hey, this was a good fit to bring into my company.
But some people are really good at making it feel like they're solid, and then later on you're
that's where I'm going. As soon as you hire them, the trust is going to go this way or this way, right? And I think if you do find out that they're kind of down here, you really say, hey, who are we as a company? What are our values? Does this person fit our values? And if they don't, it's just, let it go.
Yeah. I think it might be a Gary Vaynerchuk quote that's hire slow, fire fast. And I think it was promote faster. It's a lot in there. But how do you feel about those things? What is your ethos on if you find out that there's less trust with somebody? Like, let's say that they don't have the work ethic, and it's very obvious that you thought that they had when you hired them.
My pain. I
Yeah.
mean, that's only going to, that's not going to drag just like me down, right?
Yeah.
Not saying that we're not about people, right?
Yeah.
But if somebody doesn't have the work ethic, I'm doing a disservice to not only my people,
Yeah.
but also that person, right? I want to say, hey, you know what? The sooner that we free up their future,
Yeah.
the sooner they can go find a better fit for them, right?
Mhm.
Because not all companies require the same amount of effort, right?
Yeah.
There might be something they can go find and be really good at.
Yeah.
Maybe they just haven't found their niche, but they're not going to go find it unless you release them, right?
Yeah.
They're going to probably stick it out with you as long as they can, and they're not going to be happy. You're not going to be happy, and probably the people managing them aren't going to be happy. So I try to look at when you do have to let somebody go
Yeah.
because of a situation like that. I don't try to view it in a negative way. It's just, it's okay.
Mhm.
We're just not the right fit. And
Yeah.
I feel we have an obligation to free that
Yeah.
person so they can go find that thing that fits them.
I really enjoyed Dimitri's quote in our thing about leadership around or attracting and retaining people,
Yep.
that talked about how most roofing owners think that people want to make 200K with all the requisite hustle and extreme no
Yeah.
rest weekends and all this shit that sometimes entrepreneurs have. And a lot of them don't. And it's okay.
You're absolutely right.
Talk to me about that. Like, how have you seen that play out? And have you like lowered your expectations around like your salespeople, like what they're in? Like, I basically am trying to figure out how this plays out in your organization and if it does.
Well, let me lead off with a quote that I've heard that I really like.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's a little bit opposite, but it says
Okay.
something about a good leader takes people where they want to go. A great leader takes people where they may not want to go, but should be.
Yeah.
Right. And I do believe it is, the leader's responsibility to make people reach their potential,
Mhm.
right? Because that is when we experience progress, that's when people are happiest.
Yeah.
They really are. And if you're not experiencing progress somewhere in your life, or especially in your career, you've got to experience it somewhere, or you're just not happy. That's Tony Robbins right there. But I really believe that. And so I do stress that it's important to take people to reach their potential, but there's also a point where people become unhappy if you're just driving numbers.
Mhm.
You can do more, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not the lifestyle everybody wants to lead. I mean, it may not be a healthy lifestyle for some people, depending on what their family
Did you
situation.
do that? Did you have a period of extreme hustle where
Oh
you?
yeah.
How-
But I was young. I
What
was
were you
single,
working like? What was when you went through that period? Let's say if somebody's just watching this and they're, that, 200K to 5 million mark. What did you do? What was how many hours a week were you
Oh
working?
man, everything.
Yeah.
Literally everything. When I got up in the morning, I'd basically get dressed and get after it, right?
Yeah.
And then I would be, when I was working a storm, I'd be out till 11, 12 o'clock very often,
Mhm.
whether maybe it was going to the bar at that time,
Yeah.
just to meet people, make relationships. Maybe you're in a new town, right? But it's so important. Like,
Yeah.
it's all about relationships. And as soon as you can establish those relationships, things start clicking, right?
When did you kind of start to wind a little bit of that? Because obviously that's not sustainable for the long
No.
term. I'm certain that you're not working. Well, I'm not
No.
certain, but you probably aren't working 80-hour weeks.
No, I'm not.
So when did you decide? And I feel like I have to work less now. I personally, like, for me, it feels like I have to, like, just so I don't get burned out as a leader.
Yeah.
So when was that moment for you? When did you start to go through that change?
Well, I'll tell you what, when I was doing that, I was making less money. I was doing everything wrong, right? Everything was a Band-Aid over everything because I didn't feel I had the time or whatever. And once I figured out, like, hey, you know what the power of a team can be? Like, putting other people in places where they can take care of some of these things and really own it and then promote.
Yeah.
Everything got better, right?
Yeah.
I was working less hours, and people were able to move up through the ranks in the company because there was opportunities there, right? But I mean, really, that I think should be a red flag for anybody. If they're doing that, what I just talked about, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
You're making less money than you should. You're not focusing on the things you should. As the owner of a company or a leader of a company, you got to look at what you're spending your time on.
Yeah.
And are those the activities that are really going to drive growth, profitability, opportunity, right, for the people in the organization? I don't
and you're
think
not fixing some of the sometimes I think it's you're not fixing some of the things that you should fix because you're band-aiding, like you said, band-aiding over them with hustle almost. Like,
yes.
So at a certain point, you almost have to like constrain yourself so that you can actually fix stuff. You can go from 70 hours a week to 55 hours a week and then actually see what needs to be fixed, not just fix it with the extra 15 hours on whatever the weekend.
You said it really well. I mean, you can go too far either direction. Though. For any leader out there, I think another tip I would give is if you're too far the other way, you can get too far removed from maybe the little things that are happening in your company.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Make sure you go down and spend a day doing those activities you used to do because you think you remember what's going on or you think you're in touch, but sometimes maybe even the frame of mind that you were in when you were doing those things and the frame of your mind you're in now or the experience that you have now, you might go back into that and go, oh my God, man, why didn't I think of this? I can make this better for everybody right now. Like I didn't see it before, but with your new frame of mind or the level of experience you have, it's so good to step down into the company and do some of those roles just for a day or spend a little time with it and you will uncover a lot of inefficiencies and things that can get better.
I think a lot of our clients, I see this summer push happen where their cash flow goes wonky. So if you don't mind, and you can tell me you don't want to talk about this, but like, talk to me about, is it a solid relationship with a bank that really made it, like where did you figure out how to fix cash flow in the summer whenever, like a lot of these guys, and I don't know if I'm sure you've experienced some of this, where you're out,
it's one or the other.
Yeah.
Some roofers are broke in the winter and some are broke in the summer.
Okay, so,
right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, normally the smaller companies are kind of broke in the winter.
Okay.
Right? The guys that are, doing a little more volume are feeling that stress in the summer.
Say you're a 5 million roofer, like a 5 million.
Yes, you're going to feel that pain in the summer.
It's funny to me from the outside to observe it because we see it a little bit and like, I'm like, how could we help, like how can we help with them in these moments and how could they fix that a little bit, like when they've got so many jobs in progress and like how did you deal with that?
Okay, well let me
that's a really specific question.
It is, and I can tell you exactly what we how we approached it is, number one, look at your business from a standpoint of what are my fixed expenses and what are costs of goods sold, right? I think when you structure your company, you really want to do as many things as you can that make sense on cost of goods sold, right? So if something slows down, it's not pulling away from your business.
Yes.
It's people get more reward that way anyway.
So make it flexible costs. Make sure everything you can do is flexible costs if you can make it that way.
Yes, based on revenue, right? And it drives people to do what you want them to do anyway. They get rewarded. I always say people do what you pay them to do, right? If you pay somebody by the hour, you're paying for their time. They're going to be there from 8 to 5. They don't really care how productive they are. Yeah. But you paid for their time, you're going to get it.
How about managing incentives? So I'm hearing you say incentives. What system specifically do you use to manage incentives internally?
Well, we
just have somebody there that's a who.
I wish we had a little more software behind that.
Yeah.
And I'm looking for it. I think there are some solutions out there, but
this is an individual that kind of, is there like a money?
We do have like basically rewards, that happen along the way.
Okay.
Right. It's still based on cost of goods sold as much as possible though, right? Like we have tier structures in our payment or pay structure, right? When I look at, let's put it this way. I don't know how many roofing companies this relates to, but when I look at the way we run ours, we have W-2 employees, right? So when I look at my cost for an employee, I've got a truck that they each have. I got phones, laptops, their fuel, their 401k, their health insurance, right? All the things that an employee is going to cost me, whether they sell anything or not, right? I'm going to have to pay for that. So I look at it and I go, okay, would I rather have one salesman that sells $1 million or two salesmen that sell $500,000 each? Well, I'd rather have the guy that does one because my fixed cost really diminishes, right? In half, literally. So we reward that behavior of, being an exceptional salesperson with, compensation for, so that's why we put
it's not usually just numbers at that point. It's also like they might have a better, you might have a better time.
Well, they're going to be happier too.
Yeah.
Well, that means they are finding success in your company. There's so many reasons it makes sense.
Yes, exactly.
Right? But I want people that are making money in my company. I don't want people that are struggling. That means they're not the
it's
right
also
fit.
so much more to manage when somebody does it.
Do you want to manage two people or one, right? I mean, and the other thing I'll go to off that profitability thing is, make sure that you pay yourself a salary, right? I think it's tempting for a lot of entrepreneurs to look at that bank account and think there's money in there and start maybe spending money on themselves personally. And I just, delayed gratification is one of the most, it's like compounding interest, right? Like it's one of the most powerful things you can do for your business is that delayed gratification.
It's good. That's good. And
also look at how many people require a down payment before they start their job. That makes a huge impact on the operating costs of your company. I think that honestly, we didn't start requiring money down because of the cash flow issue, but it helped incredibly. But we did require it because, we had so many bankruptcies happen back in, former years. I thought, man, we're just getting all of these because we don't require any money down and everybody else does. And then it eliminated that problem, but it also fixed that cash flow problem, But
it's good.
Yes, have a solid relationship with your bank. Don't run your company on any, loan sharks or credit cards or whatever. Your banker is going to help you run a healthy business. They're going to tell you when you're overextending yourself. They're going to give you good, healthy advice anyway that you may not have.
Exactly, and that is one of those economies of scale, though, that bankers will start listening to you a little bit more if you actually are doing some real business.
I suppose, but I've been educated by them a lot in my past. I mean,
that's awesome. So they're telling you tips about how to manage this, and they're making sure that you got the right lines of credit, and you're not just
when they get worried, you should get worried.
Yeah,
right.
There you go.
I mean, they have ways of identifying things in your business too. I think that maybe some of us don't have at some level. When I started, I was an idiot. I mean, I needed every help I could get. So.
Any other last little tip? Because I think this is a good one, cash flow piece for roofers, and it does relate to leadership too. I mean, if you're stressed on cash flow, it can mess up the way you're talking to your employees, the way you're building your systems.
Yeah, totally. I will say this. I think as a cap on this, I've always heard that saying, the bottleneck's always at the top. Right. And I think as any leader, that's kind of an extreme ownership mentality there, that to say, hey, it's me. Anytime something's wrong in your company, it's you, right? And if you can expand yourself, then speed of the leader, speed of the troops, right? And I really think that is one of the greatest things that you can do to have a team that operates the way you want them to operate, right? Even when you talk about ethics or anything else, when they see you take responsibility, they're going to in turn be like the leader, right? That's just the way it goes.
That's good.
You're going to have the kind of attitude you want in your company.
Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Let you get to more of IRE, and
100%. Thanks for having me, man.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.